Okay, Campbell's comments doing something a bit different, raising the awareness, I suppose, for horse people out there, and something that we take for granted. It is a little bit dramatic what the backdrop here is at the minute, but very, very shortly, Mr. Anton Phillips will guide us through that. Firstly, welcome to Campbell's comments.
Hello, Paul. How are you?
Very well. We're here in beautiful Arthurs Creek, which is, I suppose, 5 minutes from Whittlesea. Very hilly area, very windy roads, can get slippery, can get wet. This sort of scenario that we've got over our back shoulder can actually happen.
Absolutely.
And can happen quite easily, simply by a horse just going around a corner and slipping over. And a lot of people take these sorts of scenarios, if you like, for granted.
They do. They certainly do. And these sort of incidents can happen very, very quickly. And the issue is then somebody trying to help this animal out that's obviously in distress.
Yep.
And they can make entry into it, so try and get into the front of the float, try and get in there, try and sort it out, and inevitably get injured. And the horse only has the will to survive. That's all it has.
Rightio. You have a funny accent. Firstly, you're from Great Britain.
I am from the United Kingdom. Yeah.
Yep. I'll get into trouble from that from everyone over there. They'll say we have the funny accent, but
no.
Don't worry about that part. And you're over here giving seminars and instructing.
I'm over here teaching technical large animal rescue to predominantly firefighters.
Yep.
But certainly the racing industry and anybody else who really wants to listen. I firmly believe that technical large animal rescue belongs in a structured organisation. So someone like the CFA is absolutely ideal. They're on the end of OOO, and that could be managed very carefully. So there we go. And
there's two parts of that. I'll go with the OOO thing because I'm sure it's one of those things that when people, something happens and they're there by themselves, they're like, what do we do? So naturally everyone rings OOO. I mean, if you're having a baby, you ring OOO. It just seems to be the go-to thing. But what do the poor people at OOO then do? They're like, well, hang on, we've got a horse on a float.
Exactly.
Where does that go to? So there needs to be that.
They're trying to manage that as well. So the training for the controllers in OOO certainly need to have as much training in terms of how to manage this incident on the end of a telephone as much as the people on the ground.
And then they ring the police officers or whoever.
And the police may respond.
They need that same sort of process to say, well, it's not an issue for us, it's an issue for this person or whatever.
But if we go back to our float scenario, someone's got to manage the traffic. Someone's got to manage the scene, the outer cordon, let's put it in those terms, that's the easiest way probably. And of course the firefighters in terms of fire and rescue may well manage this side of things. Now, it would be virtually impossible to train everybody. And so a specialist team about every hour across this state, particularly in the equine areas, the horse areas, very definitely is a possibility. A fairly low-cost possibility, actually, which is, we're all constrained by budgets and all that sort of stuff these days. And certainly in the environment of something like a race course or a harness track or whatever, you have almost a built-in team.
Yep.
You have your barrier attendants, you have your starter, you have your vet. Everything is all there. So you've got the basis of a team.
But out on the top of the hill at Arthurs Creek, and you could be by yourself.
Absolutely.
It might be 7:30 at night, and things change dramatically.
Absolutely, and the game changes completely then.
Before we go too far into this came about a little bit through necessity with yourself. You were a firefighter in Great Britain.
That's right.
Yes, and you also manage, what did you call it before, a livery?
Or a livery or a agistment.
Agistment farm. I like livery, it was just one of those words. I was like, I must use that one, I like it.
I call it a DIY livery, so basically I provide them with a car park for horses. So that's the easiest option to say that to people that are certainly not in the industry.
And it was through an incident that actually happened that you said, hang on, we've got to readjust the way we manage large animals.
Absolutely. So essentially our chief officer, albeit probably unconsciously, was sending us out the door to large animal rescues with no training.
Yep.
He didn't actually regard it as a serious issue. It was essentially going to help the lady with her pony trapped in the ditch with a load of fit guys and a bit of rope.
Yep.
And it is so much more than that. It's huge. Yeah. Absolutely huge.
And we see that. We see that on all the news information. We see that on all these channels, YouTube channels and that.
Certainly.
There's great rescues and everything that happens. But sometimes you just got to make sure the dots have been dotted, the I's have been dotted and the T's have been crossed.
Absolutely. The game is changing completely because in terms of health and safety, everybody should go to work and come home uninjured.
Yeah.
And you would know
that is key. Yeah.
You would know as a horseman just how dangerous these things can be in distress.
Yeah.
And when they're in distress, and particularly in this scenario behind me, which is in a confined space, people want to help the distressed animal. It's our compassion for animals that makes us want to do that. And that animal, if you call her Spooky, and she is called Spooky, if she was a live animal, she's a dummy, of course, or a mannequin. If she was a live animal and owned by these people here, they would almost certainly want to get in the box and help her.
Yeah, it's their natural way. And even if the right people are there, they still feel compelled to be in there and be a part of it. We are going to get on to Spooky and this scenario in a second, and we've got Warren here to help us go through how all this is going to work. But the one thing we need to think about, this is a colic attack, tight corner, slippery float, you know, like, and they just go down. A young child runs out in front of the car, you hit the skids, the horse goes down. This is something that can happen day to day and very achievable without much. This horse float on the other side of us, though, this throws up a little bit of the curveball about the training and the proper training and going from there. You come across that float there, you're not even sure if the horse is still in there. It's still in there
or still alive.
Yep.
Whether it's alive and viable. I've seen horses running up the road on 3.5 legs.
Yep.
And that's really unfortunate, but that happens.
Yep.
That horse could be potentially anything between 300 kilos and 1,000 kilos.
Yeah.
And if it bumps into cars, it can kill people. That's the basics of it. And so we need to manage that scene very, very carefully. From my point of view as a fire officer, that is about keeping the hazmat in the box if you can.
Yep.
Horses also have an amazing capacity for survival.
Yep.
They will rotate in there. They will try and climb out through the back, and I've seen them do it, and picked them up doing it. Certainly, sometimes halfway out, sometimes all the way up the road.
Yep.
So all those issues need to be addressed, and then you get the member of the public who thinks animal in trouble, got to help, and tries to undo the ramp
or something else,
and then lets the hazmat out the box. Let's put it in firefighters' language. You know, the hazmat is this thing that happens to be so many 100 kilos and got 4 legs and a perfect 4x4 and can gallop.
Yep.
So all those issues come in as well.
And the interesting part about that, when you say within an hour, hour and a half, if you are that, say, hour and a half, that 90 minutes away, and there is a firefighting team there, the fact that they know that there is a group of guys on the way,
they can at least stabilise the scene.
Exactly. And control it, say, right, don't let anyone else in there and go from there. And if they say, oh, there's Billy Bitus here, well, we're not worried about him, he's fine. But if there is someone else who's associated, you guys, yes, we know him, we know exactly who he is, he can start the assistance and you guys will know what it works for. So there is a lot more than just saying...
It's about backing off, being quiet, and if this was an open scenario, and my first thoughts, let's put my farmer's head on now, my first thoughts are, where's the rest of them?
Yeah.
And you know, that horse will not want to be in that environment. That horse is being transported, it's gone over. Almost certainly if it bolts and it runs up the road, it will probably go and try and find other animals in the vicinity. Well, most interstates, most freeways, motorways don't have animals in the vicinity that much. All those issues got to be taken into account.
It's not the nice thing to talk about in a way. Like a lot of people, we were saying there before about a horse on 3 legs, and we don't want to think about it.
No.
But that's a problem. We don't want to think about it.
But someone's got to sort the mess out sometimes.
Then one day it will inevitably happen. We've seen it happen, and to think that it will never happen again, unfortunately, it does, because things are getting safer. But it's still accidents happen.
They certainly do.
And when you're around horses, they seem to happen more.
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit of the Murphy's Law.
It is.
Okay. What do we call her again? Spooky.
Spooky.
Yeah, that's a good name.
Spooky.
I don't know why I can't remember it, but I keep forgetting the name. So she's effectively colic, gone down.
Gone down. She's now laterally recumbent. In other words, led on her side.
Yep. And the process now you guys go through. So if you want to start sort of going through the process, we've got Warren here. Warren doesn't have the full overalls in that, mainly because this was 6 hour. We worked this out at the last minute to do this interview, but he does have the helmet and the gloves. They're an essential part. Always, the number one thing is the people that are involved are safe.
Yep, and the team, as an absolute minimum, will have a proper equine helmet, because predominantly most of our rescues will be horses. They'll certainly have a pair of gloves, and they'll certainly have steel-toe cap boots.
Yep.
As an absolute minimum.
Yep.
Yes, they may well up their PPE level, so personal protective equipment level, depending on the environment. So if it's in water, we'll have a proper life jacket on. If we need some body protection, or maybe it's going down a steep bank, we'll have full arrest equipment. So all those bits and pieces will come into this.
Yeah.
But we're always thinking about where that's going to want to go.
Yeah, and that's the part.
The personal protective equipment side of it could adversely affect our horse as well. So
we're half going to start from the back, because we'll get into that in a sec.
Yep.
These plastic, they're plastic, they're skids.
They are.
For a better word.
Yeah, they're known in the trade as a glide.
Yep.
It is essentially a backboard for horses.
Yep.
So if you imagine now that a human casualty has been extricated from a car wreck or a car crash, they go onto a backboard to immobilise their spine and to make sure they're insulated from the rest of the jagged metal and the glass that's all around a car crash. This is no different, it's just bigger.
Yeah.
These, and you'll notice round the edges, you'll see the ovals and you'll see little holes and all the rest of it. These can actually be bolted together to make it a complete backboard. In other words, we could get the entire animal on there with its legs out straight, insulating the animal's body from the ground.
Yep.
We have lots of soft ground in the UK because it never stops raining. In Australia, of course, it rarely rains,
except for this year.
Except for this year, yeah. And of course, all of our weather patterns have just done that. So, yes, of course, it does that. But at the end of the day, all of us on our feet will wear cowhide, which is much, much stronger. They're much, much tougher. Whereas the skin will come off of our horse really, really easily. The skin is very, very thin.
And some of the things you said to me just then, even in water, like it throws up a lot of other issues. But then there's also that part, like people say, oh, because it'd be slippery, it'd be better. Everything then becomes slippery. So
Everything.
You need something that is usable and workable.
Yeah, definitely.
A lot of ropes, or you call them lines,
well,
used,
yeah,
but without knots. No,
that's right.
It's fine. We're trying to make sure people understand both sides of it.
Certainly.
But with the lines and the ropes, no knots, and you have no knots in any of it.
Everything. I would say try not to. There are times when you may have to tie a knot because it's so far down a deep slope or down a deep hole, wherever, and you kind of got to. But we try not to. Everything we do, we build quick release because it's about him. And it's absolutely about us.
Yep.
So you'll notice now then you've got a grey line folded in half, and half of it has been dyed blue.
Yeah, and this is one of those things that really intrigued me. So
certainly, and so very simple.
Left-hand side's blue. Is it always that way?
Not necessarily. It's just the way it's been rigged. But if we've got to use members of the public, and if we only turn up as we are today with short crude, and we have to use members of the public, we would have what we call a clean line principle. So someone would pick up that. So I'll just pop my helmet on a minute.
You're right.
And so we're in like so. We've got our connection to our strop. Our strop is made of cloth. It is a 3-ton strop, 21-ton brake, so a very strong piece of kit anyway. That can wrap around the animal's body without damaging it, and we have procedures for doing that. And so in effect, we've got what we call a backward skid on our horse. And then we get to our people, and we'd have our guy on the front, and all the way down my line. So the line, my grey line, if you like, call that, I would say to everybody, right, we're all on the same side. If you were there and Warren was there and we go backwards and forwards all the way down, and we said drop the lines, there would be confusion. This is to help avoid the confusion if that gets up halfway through the rescue.
Yeah.
So it's all about our safety as much as his or hers. Spooky's a female. So
I know,
we better qualify that.
I'm easily confused. You're confusing me very easily. No,
I've been confused all my life, but yeah, absolutely.
And that is why. So, and when you said there before, drop the line, you drop the blue.
Yeah. So if someone says lines out, and away we go.
Yep.
And we just pull that line straight out. Spooky may well bolt off down the road, but what Spooky's not doing is he's not attached to anything. We don't get cut down because potentially this will just slice your legs off. And of course, ideally, all the way through the extrication, someone is managing the head at this end as well as the other end.
And we will get to the horse.
Certainly.
And then we'll come back to the skids in a second.
Certainly.
There's a reason, just a little bit of a reason. I've seen it, how it's done, and I wanted to highlight the blue and the white and the forward planning, if you like, with it.
And everything is forward planned or what I would call pre-rigged.
Yes.
So you can see now that on the ramp, we've actually put a skid plate or a glide plate. That's that one. And then on the flat ground, we've actually got a metal plate there, so it could be tied to a truck and be able to skid the animal away to a place of safety.
Yeah, and that was the one that had me, this one here had me a little bit when we started. I was like, what's that for? You know, because you get it to here, well, that's it. The horse is out. Let the horse stand up, and this is nice firm ground. But
absolutely. But most of this stuff is very simple, low-tech stuff.
But this is Warren's house. So, I mean, of course, where we're doing it, it's good for me cameras. It's a nice little setting.
Yeah.
Everything's fine. It's not the side of the hill to get to Warren's house.
Or it's not the interstate or the freeway. And when it comes to the freeway and anywhere where there's a steep slope, we do have a packaging process which we actually package this horse up and basically completely hold it onto that glide if we need to. But that is a very serious conversation we have to have with a veterinary surgeon to make sure that can maintain full chemical restraint on that.
And then you can put that into a float, onto a
Exactly.
lorry,
Yes.
whatever, and take it and move it. Did you like that word, lorry? I didn't even
Lorry,
use
we
the
did lorry. Yeah, we use truck. But yeah, we can do trucks or lorries. But essentially, yes. And if we now thinking, let's take the emotional side out of this, and we regard that as property. The horse's property.
Yep.
That property could be worth an absolute fortune. It, for whatever reason, could be mare in foal, decent stallion. All those issues will come into this. And if you want to keep him alive and viable, then maybe, just maybe, you might have to go from that to that, be packaged, send him off under chemical restraint, all the way to an equine hospital to give him the best possible chance of carrying on his normal life.
Yeah.
And making, further profits for the owner.
Yeah, exactly.
So those issues all come into this as well.
And that's where the emotion does come from. And we always got to remember, it doesn't matter whose horse it is.
Yeah.
It is the most valuable product for those.
Certainly, and it's almost certainly a member of their family.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, there is a commercial side, but yes, there is a emotional side to this as well.
Yeah.
As soon as you give an animal a name, you humanise it.
Yeah.
Straight away. That's just a fact of
I'm not
life.
sure where you come up with spooky, but that's okay.
Don't blame me. That's Warren's fault.
Poor old Warren, he hasn't even been on camera just yet, and he goes from there. Okay, so we've gone forward and then backwards to a degree. So Spooky's gone down.
Yes.
You guys arrive.
Yes.
I would imagine number one process.
Number one process is probably shut the box up.
Yep.
And let's ensure that an equine vet, the person with the right and correct chemical control measures, are on the road coming to this job.
Yep.
Now, going back to our controllers, that is sort of thing that I would be telling the controller that, so someone's dials 000, for instance, the 000 operator will be saying, and have you called your vet? Or have you called a vet?
Yeah.
And we want to know that horse vet comes to the horse rescue.
Yeah.
Once we get the vet in attendance at a similar time to perhaps our animal rescue team, the vet is then going to sedate this, probably sedate this intramuscularly if they've got no other access. So they get some sort of sedative into it to start with. In other words, turning the lights down a little tiny bit. Then they may be able to get venous access. So in other words, turning the lights right down.
Yep.
And this is not just about a level 2 sedation. So let's cover that. With a factor of 1 to 10, with 10 being anaesthetised, I would like that about 9.
Yep.
That is profoundly drunk in human terms.
Yep.
Once this is profoundly drunk, we are then much more likely to be able to manipulate strops onto this animal's body and be able to slide this animal out of, or skid this animal out of the box safely without it fighting with us.
Yes. So we sedate the horse to a 9.
Yep.
Anyone's wondering why not to a 10? Because a 10 when the horse
10 is lights off.
Yeah, and you need to give them oxygen and everything else.
Yeah, well, that then leads into a completely different drug regime called anaesthesia. And the issue with that, of course, if it comes round in a very violent way, and that's the potential, it will shake about all over the place and potentially damage itself further.
Yep.
So they try not to do that, particularly in rescue.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, there are times when you've absolutely got to get in there and extricate. If this thing's all smashed in by a truck, then, of course, that changes the game again.
Yep.
So all those issues come into it.
So we put the strops?
Yep, so the strops go on with a tool called a strop guide. Shall I show you that?
Yeah, definitely,
okay.
please.
So this is our strop guide. And this is a piece of spring steel. As you can see, it springs, it's all flat, it's all rounded, so there's nothing that can damage the animal as such. You'll note the hook is flat on the end. So essentially for this, I can stand out of the kicking zone. I can offer that underneath. Now at the back of this horse box, almost certainly there'll be lubricant, also known as poo.
Yep.
This horse will be sweaty and very slippery. So this is very easy on a real horse. It's very difficult with a dry dummy on a dry floor. But essentially what I'm going to do is I'll push this through and I'm going to offer that right down the front. Now someone will be coming in through the groom door, the jockey door at the end, and offering the end of the strop over it. The strops have what they call a midline marker on them. So in other words, exactly in half, right there.
Yep.
That midline marker on this horse, unless it's been pre-rigged, but on that midline marker is now on its spine line, directly in front of its pelvis.
Yep.
So essentially then I'm going to pull our strop through. As I come through, I will take that out. I would keep on going all the way down here, get rid of this thing, and I'm just going through the process.
No, please.
I would pick up the strop and bring it all the way through to the midline markers about the middle of that board, give or take, a couple of feet off its backside. I'd then pass the other end of the strop back up to Warren at the other end. Warren would essentially then floss this strop through so that he basically pops the strop through to the first big natural hollow.
Yep.
Just in front of its hind legs. Once he's done that, he then passes what would then become, you essentially have a belly strap and a hind strap, or a back strap. He passes the belly strap through. Now I could do that.
Yep.
Or I could use the strop guide again, all done nice and quietly, no rattling around, nothing that sort of stuff. We bring that through, and we then transfer it to that side, normally leg side, out of kicking zone, level it up properly, and then lay that in position, and it now forms the exact position you got. So in effect, the strop is going round through there and back through its leg, so you've got a proper anchor point as such.
Point of hips, pelvis.
Exactly, exactly that. Point of hips and straight on the pelvis. They're brought together, and then to reduce any further stimulation, somebody then picks this up and hangs on to this, so we're not wrenching against the animal's body as we're pulling the ropes through.
Yep.
So it's all done
again,
quietly.
We're saying about a 5-person team potentially.
Exactly.
At the minute it's you and Warren, because I can't. This will hurt me back if I go to help and pull it out.
Okay. What we'll get you to do then, when we do this extrication, was we'll get you to manage that head. And what we've done is then we've pre-laid, and it's all about pre-rigging again. We've pre-laid the lunge line, so we've initially taken some control with a lunge line around something like the jockey wheel or something at the front of the vehicle to start with, just in case this comes crashing out the door. Yep. And then we've loosened it all off right at point of extrication. You would get hold of that, and you'll stand out of kicking zone, and you'll shorten up on its head as you go. If it gets fouled in any way, of course, we'd have other firefighters here with a crook in their hand just to manipulate the limbs out of the way so they don't get caught, and that's how that's done. The idea is to slide this animal all the way down. We take good account of its tail, so at the moment this tail is actually pinched underneath the strop. Ideally, I personally like to hang on to it. So for instance, I could take this tail out of here and stand out of kicking zone. I'm not pulling on its tail, I'm just guiding the tail down the ramp. It is part of the animal's spine, we don't want to damage it, and we slide that from the place of danger, so the confined space, all the way out onto our rescue glide itself. You see your tin towing plate there, your steel towing plate there, and we can actually then slide this animal away to a place of safety, and that's how it works. And
it's all around kicking zone, not getting kicked. I'm standing here, effectively right at the minute. I'm borderline safe.
You are okay.
I'm borderline safe. Yeah. But if the horse does start thrashing, I would still be a chance. On that side, like you say, spine
greatly
side
reduced.
makes it a lot easier. So the reason for a lunge lead that it actually fell, because I can then, and I'm probably out of camera shot, but
you got contact.
Yeah, and be out of the way, and don't have to worry about the kicking effect, if you like.
That's right. And as that horse came out, and particularly as it comes out, and you probably pass that over to somebody this side, they may be able to put the knee on the neck just to give it that assurance that it's going to stay down whilst we slide it away. Yep. So before movement, and so at this point, I would have a vet in to sedate, to probably re-sedate that again. Yep. This is one of these jobs that can take 5 minutes, or it could take 20 minutes to get all this on and rigged properly. Yep. And then once we've got the second sedative goes in, we can pretty well guarantee that this is going to stay down all the way through. We really don't want this horse getting up now. This wants to stay in the right position, slide from the place of danger to the place of safety. Warren, you have to put your helmet on as well. Here he comes. We're going to do it all. We're going to have to do it all officially. That's for sure. Yeah. We could have some more helpers in a minute, which would be quite funny, but that's okay because that does happen in this environment. So heavily sedated, 9 out of 10 sedated. Yep. So everything. Let's just cover that. Sedation is lights turned down. Yep. Anaesthesia is lights turned off. But if we turn the lights off, the drugs regime that's going over the top of the sedation can be potentially very serious outcome for that, and could be potentially very dangerous for us if it reacts badly once it's been extricated. Yep. So that's why the vet will particularly want to make sure it just remains in the sedated state and not in the anaesthetised state. In an anaesthetised state, they tend to use that in an equine hospital because it's much more reliable and they have much more management so it's in fact in the field, so to speak. So it's much safer. Yep. Yep. Slings are on. The slings on. They're balanced up. We will be in the on the clean line, so we'll stand on the grey side. So in other words, spine side again. We'll then extricate this very, very slowly. We'll slide it down. If you would stand just out of kicking zone for me, that'd be good. Just very quickly, 200 kilo, 250 kilo. Yeah. So we're pulling with 2 people. Yeah. Quarter of a ton. Yeah. Give or take. So this is simulating what a real horse is like. It's simulating something like a small pony. Yep. So if we're starting to get into your standard breds and your race horses, we're looking 450, 550, give it that sort of bracket range. Police horses, 700 kilos. Certainly our UK police horses are minimum 700 kilos. Shires, Clydesdales, that sort of thing, you're looking about 850 to about 1.1 tonne. And so people might say, why do you want people from the public to help? But that's why.
because all of a sudden you're towing a ton.
Suddenly the game's changed.
Four people trying to pull one of these. So at the minute you and Warren are going to try and pull 250 out.
Yeah.
But going forward, like you've got an 800 kilo horse, you only got 4 people, you actually are pulling 2.5 tonne. So you go from there. Warren, we'll get Warren in. Warren's camera shy, I think. He hasn't been all that keen on the camera. And I would imagine gloves are essential.
They are essential, and I'm just about to pop mine on just to make absolutely sure that I don't get my hands damaged.
Can I give you one heads up?
Go for it.
You got to tell me exactly what to do as you're going out, because you haven't actually gone through this with me.
Okay.
So yeah.
We are now going to pull this forward, and as it comes forward, it will probably kite that way a little bit. So Warren and I will change our position so that the animal comes and tries to remain directly on the glide.
Is undone.
It's already undone. It's all undone.
Yep.
Yeah. The other thing to take account of course, is its lower eye. Their eyes are on the side of their head, ours are on the front of our head.
Yep.
So if you were dragged out, yes, you'd have a sore ear, but in actual fact, this thing could be blinded.
Yep.
So Warren's at the moment developing another sheet as such, and it's very, very simple, but and most animal rescue tools are specifically for wrapping around things that are down on their sides.
Just
so there is such a thing as a head sheet to save the abrasions in the eye. It's got the largest eye of any domestic land animal, so there we go. Okay, so we tend to use a ready brace and pull. That's how we do it in the UK, so we'll do the same. Are you good, mate? So ready brace and pull.
And then the ropes kick in on the side of the float there, I saw that. So
we're gently.
And of course, just if I went to here, this is where
You'll be in the kicking zone. So you're going to stay out the kicking zone.
Yep.
And we're going to ease this over. And we're going to come all the way up to about that point.
Yep.
We're then going to go round the back. Very easy to get drawn in.
Yeah. Well, I did.
That's why you need.
Did you just see where I was? Yeah.
And that's why you need an instant commander, instant controller to say, kicking zone.
Yep.
Not shouting and hollering and all that sort of stuff. It's all got to be done really, really quietly. So I would probably get Warren to manage that side. We could go lines out now. So Warren's now pulling the lines out and getting rid of that. Very quickly, it's gone. I would probably, for now, just tidy this up.
Yep.
And I'll tidy that up onto the thing. I would get you to pass that straight over to me. Again, I would tidy this up, and at least then I've got some sort of control at this point. We would have a hauling crew ready on our red line at the end, which is attached to our shackle, to be able to slide the animal away.
Yeah.
If we needed to, yes, of course, we'll pick up the feet. We don't want to cause any damage. Feet, coronets, up through its legs, of course, because they are the most vulnerable bits. Pretty well, and we just slide this animal away from the float. And that's basically how it's done. So
Warren had ambitions of being able to pull the whole skid, but it didn't work. It didn't quite work. But that's
it's actually not hard on the plastic.
It's a bit easier on the plastic. So Warren's actually going to be able to pull this away.
And away we go. Now, at the end of the day, you could actually put a glide plate down, or glide plates down, a little tiny bit of water on there, and slide that like it's on marbles.
Yeah.
It's really, really easy to do. So, you know, we look at the engineering of this quite a lot because we're the lifters and shifters. We've got to make sure that we can actually move this animal from a place of danger to a place of safety without doing our backs in and all that stuff. And certainly a little tiny bit of water on that glide plate with that sliding across, it just floats along. So it's really quite good.
So the one thing I noticed, well, actually, you can actually see how much further the skid has come. We said no knots, but this one has not. The force that goes onto that initially, but then it slides.
Yes.
It was incredible.
Very straightforward.
If my cameras work and if everything goes to plan, I may be able to just zoom in on that.
Yes.
And capture it up. It was great to watch.
Yeah, we like.
So Anton, that's a comprehensive wrap of I suppose getting a large animal off a float and being able to control the situation, having people educated and in the right manner. The key for me coming here today was to be able to, I suppose, observe, see, but also make people aware of it. I mean, that's what Campbell's comments is about, is actually making sure people enjoy animals for the rest of their lives. But by that, you've got to be able to enjoy every situation that can happen. So I'm going to say thank you to you. It has been a little bit trying. We've had a couple of camera issues, but it's fine. We've worked through those. But I will say, thank you for that part. And just raising the awareness. Now, you're here at the minute, you're going home tonight, but you're going to come back in about 12 months' time?
I'm back here again in August. and there is significant planning going to be going on now between now and next August, certainly in the racing industry, possibly harness industry, certainly in the general equestrian industry, and particularly in our CFA. They will be made aware of all the various issues going on with this. As I said before, this is not actually a horse issue, it's actually a human issue. And if we just clearly understand that wherever there's an animal trapped, there's always somebody trying to help it. So if we don't, as a team, or as an organisation, particularly someone like the CFA or a fire brigade or whatever organisation is chosen to do this, then someone else will or will try.
Yep.
And that's the bit that's the dangerous bit.
Yeah.
They're getting in there with an emotional head-on rather than a sound, procedural, this is how it's going to be done very, very carefully, almost certainly in conjunction with the vets. This has now got to work as a team effort to get this animal from a place of danger to a place of safety.
No. Anton, thank you. Warren, thank you very much too. He's behind the camera and going there. Beautiful day. It probably a touchy subject for some people, but it's reality. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Look forward to seeing you in 12 months' time.
Certainly. Lovely.
You.